Beautiful, beautiful soul. Welcome back to The Answers. I am Janet, and this is the space where we stop guessing about love and start understanding it. Your patterns, your triggers, your power. And before we start, if this episode hits something in you, it is not an accident. That is the part of you that is ready now to stop repeating the same story over and over. So stay with me here. Today we are talking about a sentence that you probably said before, probably many times. Maybe out loud to a friend, maybe just to yourself, 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. I never saw it coming. And today I want to challenge that sentence because I don't think it's true. I think you did see it coming. You just didn't want to look. So let's go into this. You said it about the relationship that ended in chaos. You said it about the situationship that quietly drained you for years. You said it about the partner who turned out to be someone completely different than who they were showing you in the beginning. But here is the questions I really actually want to say to you. Did you not? Did you not see it? Because when you go back, really go back, not to the soft edited version, the real one, there were moments, small ones, a conversation about the future that felt slightly off, a pattern of being available only on their terms, a gap in what you needed and what you were getting that you noticed in month 1 and you were still explaining it in month 12. And here is what you maybe get wrong. This is not only about the lies, it is not, it is bigger than that. This is about everything you see clearly, early, and quietly now decide to argue yourself out of. Lies are just a version of it. Today we are going to go all the way in. Because here is the truth that nobody tells you. You don't lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself 1 inch at a time across 4 specific areas. And you already know exactly which one I am talking about because you lived through them. Compatibility. You know within weeks whether your values line up. You know if your sense of humor lands with them or if you are constantly softening yourself to be understood. You know if the way you handle conflict and money and family ambition actually fits with theirs. Or if you are already rehearsing how you will work around it later. That is not compatibility. That is you doing unpaid labor to make incompatibility feel survivable. Now, we also have needs. You know exactly what you need to feel safe and seen. You knew it in the first time you asked for something small. Reassurance, consistency, a simple check-in, and got a version of it, just thin enough to keep you hoping. You noticed that gap, and instead of naming that gap, you shrank the need now. You told yourself you were asking for too much, when you were really asking for the bare minimum. And being met with the bare minimum, that is almost like a cousin to it, right? It's far away. Availability, and this one is brutal, I know, because it's the most visible and the most excused there is. You know when someone is emotional available. You feel it in how present they are and how curious they are about your inner world, how consistent they are without you having to manage it. And you know just as fast when someone is not. When they are available in bursts, when they are showing up fully, only when you pulled back. That one you know. When the relationship runs on your effort and their convenience. You saw it in the week 3, right? You just decided to wait for the week 30 to call it for what it was. But you know when someone is there for you, consistent. You don't need to chase it, right? You know this. Now we have vision. You know early whether you are walking toward the same life. Whether marriage, kids, location, ambition, timelines. whether any of it actually lines up, or whether you are both just avoiding the conversation because naming the mismatch means facing an ending. You felt that vague unease every time the future came up and got quietly now changed to a different subject. That unease was information. You just didn't want it to be, but you saw it. You know this. And here is the pattern underneath all four of these. You see it. You always see it. And then because you are invested, the more invested you get, the more creative you get with the excuses. All right? Always. The mind goes so creative always when you are invested to find thousands excuses, but you see it. You do see it. I need you now to really listen to this part, to really hear this part, because this is the engine behind everything that we talked about today. The more invested you get, the more creative you get with the excuses. Not because you're foolish, but because your brain is doing exactly what it is designed to do to protect the investment. You put in time, hope, vulnerability, maybe also love, and the cost of naming the mismatch feels bigger than the cost of tolerating it. So you get resourceful, you build reasons. They are just bad with words, not bad with feelings. The timeline thing will probably work itself out. Maybe I don't need as much as I think I do, and on and on. The creativity is not a weakness, it is actually a skill, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. You are talented of building a case for staying. You could argue either side of this in the court, right? And every single time you use that talent to argue against your own knowing, you move the boundary one more inch. And this is how small gap in compatibility becomes a marriage of two strangers managing each other. This is how small pattern of unavailability becomes a decade of being the only one of reaching. This is how we will figure it out. The vision later becomes standing at 40, having built no version of the life that you actually want, because you keep editing your vision to match someone else's who was never walking toward the same vision as you. Not at all. The creativity is not a weakness, it is actually a skill, which is exactly why it is so dangerous. You are talented at building a case for staying. You could argue either side in the court, right? And every single time you use this talent to argue against your own knowing, you move the boundary one more inch. And this is how small gap in compatibility becomes a marriage of two strangers managing each other. This is how small pattern of unavailability becomes decade of being the only one reaching. This is how we will figure it out. The vision later becomes standing at 40, having built no version of the life that you actually wanted, because you kept editing your vision to match someone else's who was never walking toward the same. None of it was invisible. All of it was named quietly by you, overruled by also you. Let me paint this out, because it's easy to agree with it in theory, right? And completely miss it in your actual real life. It's always like that. The intellectual, you can see it, the theory, you can see it, but in the feeling, you miss it. Picture the compatibility one. You are now a few months in. You bring up something that matters to you. How you were raised, what family means to you, how you handle stress. And now the reaction that you get is a little bit dismissive, a little bit that is not a big deal, and you laugh it off. You tell yourself now that you are both just different. And different can work, right? But 18 months later in, you are full in the relationship, built on two completely different definitions of loyalty, communication, and effort. And you are exhausted, wondering when it got so hard. And I can tell you something, it got so hard already in month 3. You just signed the leash anyway. Now, picture the need 1. You ask for something simple. A text back within reasonable time. A plan made in advance instead of the last minute. And you get it for a while right after you ask, and then it fades back again. You ask again more gently, and this time, because you don't want to seem needy, it improves for a week, and then it fades again. This is not inconsistency. This is a very consistent pattern of doing the minimum required to keep you from leaving. The minimum. You saw it. You saw it the second time it faded. You just didn't want to be the person who made a big deal out of it, of something small, but you did see it. You did see it coming, right? Now, the availability 1, this is the one I hear the most. Always with my clients. Someone who is deeply present when you pull back and quietly absent when you lean in. The hot and cold, the cold and hot. And you start without realizing it, managing now your own energy to keep them consistent. Texting less, needing less, wanting less, and calling that peace. It is not peace, it is you. It is you shrinking your presence to match the level of availability someone else has decided is enough. And the vision 1, you bring up the future, even casually, and you get the vague, we will see. Let's not put a label on it, this timeline. And you accept it, you accept that it's open-minded, or that open-mindedness. But there is a difference between being open-minded now and unwilling. And you see it. Yeah? Open-minded still moves. Unwillingness just waits for you to stop asking. None of these are even a dramatic event. That is exactly why it works. You don't lose years of your life to one catastrophe. You lose them to 100 moments. You were talented enough to explain it away. You were skilled enough. Until the day the pattern finally breaks and you just sit there in shock. I never saw it coming. But you did, my love. In every one of these 4 areas, you saw it. You just used your creativity on the wrong side of the argument. I want you now to take you somewhere deeper, because this is not only a behavioral pattern, it is also a spiritual one. And every one of these moments where you notice the compatibility gap, the unmet needs, the inconsistency of availability, the mismatched vision, and the quietly overruled yourself, that was not just a relationship issue. That was also a self-love issue. Because the deepest form of self-abandonment is not loud. It is the small, repeated act of ignoring what your soul already have been telling you in favor of what your fear needed to believe. And here is the shift I want to offer you today. Stop asking now, why didn't I see it? Start asking, what did I need to believe about myself to override what I saw? If you needed to believe you weren't worthy of full compatibility, you settle for less. If you needed to believe that your needs were too much, you'd accept a fraction of them and call it enough. If you needed to believe that love has to be chased to be real, you will mistake inconsistency for chemistry. If you needed to believe that your vision wasn't allowed to matter as much as theirs, you quietly erase it to keep the peace. And this is where the real healing lives. Not in becoming suspicious of everyone, not in armoring yourself so nothing can ever reach you again. That is not growth. That is a different kind of self-abandonment, one where you leave yourself before anyone else can get the chance to. Now, the real shift is this. You learn to treat your own perception as sacred. When something feels off, incompatibility in your needs, in their availability, in the vision you are building together, you don't need a fully formed case to justify noticing it. You don't need proof to honoring your feeling. Your intuition doesn't owe anyone an explanation. This is self-love in the most practical form. Not bubble baths, not affirmations in the mirror alone, although we are about to do exactly that. Self-love is the discipline of believing yourself the first time. First time it is saying it to you internally. I notice that. I'm allowed to take it seriously instead of waiting of mountains of evidence before you allow to trust your own eyes and your own soul and your own intuition. Yeah? And here is the truth underneath all of it. You were never actually blind. You were just trained to distrust your own vision. Every person, every experience, every heartbreak that taught you to override your gut, your intuition, that was conditioning, not the truth. And conditioning can be undone. The moment you start now to honoring the small that felt off, instead of arguing yourself out of it, you stop needing life to hit you with something catastrophic to get your attention. You start now to respond to the whispers instead of waiting for the scream. That is the rise. Not becoming hard, becoming honest with yourself first before anyone else. Listen to your soul, all right? So let's bring this now all the way home. You are not someone who attracts the wrong people, the wrong timing, the wrong fit. You are someone who was taught to override the right information about compatibility, about your needs, about availability, about your vision. Those are two completely different stories. And only one of them keeps you stuck. From today on forward, practice this the first time something feels off in any of those 4 areas. You don't need it to be big enough to justify a conversation. You just need to notice it, name it, even to yourself. And watch now what happens next. Not what they say, what they do after being noticed. This is the whole test. People will show you who they are really quickly if you let yourself actually see it instead of editing it into something softer. And you will show yourself who you are in the exact same moment. By whether you honor what you saw or if you use the creativity to explain it away one more time. You didn't fail to see it coming. You saw it. The work now is not to sharpen your eyes. The work now is a louder commitment to yourself than the story that you wanted to be true so much. Now, why don't we wrap this up with some affirmation? And remember, I didn't see it coming. Yes, you did. You saw it coming from the beginning, right? Be honest to yourself. Now, take a deep breath and repeat after me. I trust what I see even before I can fully explain it. My needs are not too much. They are the minimum I deserve. I no longer need proof to justify my peace. I am allowed to want full compatibility, not partial. Consistency is the standard, not the expectation. My vision for my life matters as much as anyone else's. I choose truth over comfort every time I have to choose. I am done being creative with excuses. I am ready to be honest with myself. Thank you for being with me today. And if you want to contact me, you can do so on my email info@janettewienberg.se or all over the social media with my name, Janette Wienberg. So until next week, Wednesday, when I release the next episode, take care of yourself, stay true to yourself, and with lots of love from me to you.